Evening all, it's Monday, hockey's back in Widnes, so it's time to go wild. Yes, it's Monday once again, time for the Time to Go Wild radio show on 92.3 FM Halton Community Radio. Of course, we're live across the internet, www.hcr923fm.com, and on the TuneIn app. You can get us on Facebook, facebook.com/TTGW Radio, and on Twitter, twitter.com/TTGW Radio. You can contact the show, radio@widneswild.co.uk, and the telephone line 01928 835 291. Of course, we've got all the news from across the leagues coming up. Evening, Doug.
Good evening, Cole. How are you?
Catching up after a busy weekend.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, after last week with nothing, this week it was a double whammy.
Yeah, a long way and a long away game and a short home game.
Suppose we better do this then. Time for the roundup of the classified results from across the Elite Ice Hockey League and the NIHL North Leagues for this last week. Starting in the EIHL with Wednesday the 27th of September, Dundee Stars 0, Cardiff Devils 4, Sheffield Steelers 4, Milton Keynes Lightning 3, Nottingham Panthers 5, Belfast Giants 4. Moving on to Saturday, Cardiff Devils 5, Braehead Clan 0, Sheffield Steelers 5, Coventry Blaze 2. Moving on to Sunday, Coventry Blaze 5, Sheffield Steelers 1, Manchester Storm 2, Belfast Giants 1, Guildford Flames 8, Braehead Clan 5, Dundee Stars 5, Milton Keynes Lightning 1. Meanwhile, in the Elite League Challenge Cup on Saturday, Belfast Giants 4, Edinburgh Capitals 6, Nottingham Panthers 3, Manchester Storm 2, Milton Keynes Lightning 3, Guildford Flames 2, Fife Flyers 5, Dundee Stars 1, Edinburgh Capitals 3, Fife Flyers 7. Moving into the NIHL Division 1 North Morley for Saturday, Bellingham Stars 3, Telford Tigers D1 4, Solway Sharks 6, Nottingham Lions 2. On Sunday, Whitley Warriors 6, Dragons D1 3, Hull Pirates 6, Solway Sharks 3, Telford Tigers D1 4, Solihull Barons 2, Nottingham Lions 1, Blackburn Hawks D1 3. And the all-important NIHL Division 2 North Laidler. Saturday, Bradford Bulldogs 8, Hull Juts 4, Blackburn Hawks D2 0, Altrincham Aces 16, Sheffield Senators 4, Widnes Wild 5, Coventry Blaze NIHL 3, Sutton Sting 4 after overtime. And finally, Sunday's results. Dragons D2 4, Altrincham Aces 16, and final game, the big one, Widnes Wild 16, Blackburn Hawks D2 2. That's the results for the last week across the EIHL and NIHL Division 1 and 2 North Leagues. So, some big scores there, Doug.
It was, wasn't it?
Well, last night, looking at the game sheet, it was definitely a wide spread. In fact, out of every outskater for the RTL Widnes Wild, only one didn't get a point. Oh, poor TJ.
He played well, Graham.
He did play well. He did. He did everything right. He just didn't get a point. I mean,
it was Matty Barlow's first goal.
Oh, that was lovely. Yeah, that was a sweet little shot. That, but yeah, we had some very intriguing stats last night. I mean, Andy Turner getting a goal. Danny Bracegirdle got a nice assist last night. Stuart Brittle 1+5. But now I'm going to ask this question in a mo again when we bring in our two guests about plus minus stats, and I have a funny feeling that a player can get a plus-minus stat when they're in the sin bin. I'm not sure how that works for their on the on-ice plus-minuses, but I've got a funny feeling if that counts, Tom Ratcliffe got himself +2 when he was sat in the sin bin.
Probably. It depends if your line scores, doesn't it?
No, I would say his line, but he was in the sin bin, so he could have been on the ice. So, 2 short-handed goals when he's in the bin.
Two short-handed goals within 16 seconds.
Such is life. Well, I suppose we better have a word with I'll hear from our man of the match from last night, shouldn't we?
Yes, we should, yes.
So here's what Matty Barlow had to say.
Good evening, it's Doug Brown for Time to Go Wild Radio at the Silver Blades Ice Rink, Widnes, on Sunday the 1st of October, and we're interviewing Matty Barlow, who was made MVP tonight in the game of Widnes Wild against the Blackburn Hawks. Good evening, Matty.
You're right.
How did you enjoy that game?
I loved every minute of playing. It was quite fast. It was exciting. Good game to play in. Obviously, we got Altrincham next week, so it's just going over set plays and working field drills. So when we play against Altrincham, we're ready to go.
So that was your first goal for the Widnes Wild?
Yeah.
I've noticed you have been trying for a few weeks.
Yeah, I have been
really hard.
Very hard.
So congratulations on your first one.
Oh, thanks.
So, how did you think about getting an assist against your old team on the first match we played?
Well, obviously I love Bradford. I've been playing there since I was a junior, but I'm at Widnes. I play for Widnes now, and I need to do what I can do for the team and get points and get goals and hopefully win the league and playoffs.
Yeah. So, how many shifts do you think you did tonight?
Shifts?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Well, let's count.
It was continuous, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was a good game.
Well, thanks very much for your first goal, and we hope you get many more. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.
So that's what Matty Barlow had to say after the last night, and it was a lovely little goal, wasn't it, Doug?
It was, yeah. There's some interesting plays coming out of a couple of players last night because they could take it a bit easier than normal. And you could see some of the intricacies between him and Mikey Gilbert.
Mikey was on fire. He kept appearing out of the middle of nowhere. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah.
I was doing some editing last night, and I'm looking at the footage, and the next thing I'm scrubbing through. And I think Mikey appears out in the middle of nowhere. I thought, where did you come from? So,
well, he wasn't going to go up that chase for the goal, was he?
He got 2 on the bounce for that. Well, we're talking about last night. I suppose we better bring in tonight's guests.
Yes, I think we should really. Otherwise, it's a bit rude of us to get them here without talking to them. And tonight's guests on Time to Go Wild Radio I've called them hockey stalwarts. And I don't think with their son as well, there's not anything they really know about hockey at all levels. And it's welcome to our guests, Dick and Gill Gillingham. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for coming down tonight.
Thanks for coming down.
So,
I hope Mark didn't say it was too daunting.
Oh no.
Because some people sort of think, "Oh, crikey, I'm in front of the microphone," but no, we're a tame lot here. It's not like we're at game night. No, we're well behaved in here. It's my padded cell, so just bounce off the walls. So, we'll start off with the infamous one. Tell us, just give our listeners a bit of an insight into sort of your history with hockey.
It goes back a long way. My father used to play ice hockey in Blackpool. He used to play for Blackpool Seagulls when he was a teenager, and my mum was a figure skater at Blackpool, and they started going out together, and my dad actually gave up playing hockey and took on figure skating, which is something that you never ever seem to hear of. But he did that. He took up the figure skating, and him and mum then went touring with ice shows. They got married. They were touring for 6 years, and then I came along, so that put paid to that. But my dad then still kept going to the hockey. Obviously it was at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, a rather peculiar rink. It was round at one end and flat at the other. And I've actually got pictures of him back in 1948 when he was playing for the Seagulls. So that was how I got into it. Dad used to take me down to the rink. I used to go down and watch the Seagulls. In fact, not in 1948, but when I was about 10, I think, when I went to see my first game. And then, of course, when Mark came along, that was it. He started playing when he was 4, so we've just been involved in ice hockey ever since.
Yeah, I think we started watching ice hockey in the same year, 1965. We've worked out. We didn't know one another, but I think we were probably in the same building a few times at Blackpool. I was a sort of go out and have a good time teenager, sixth former probably by then, and we just decided to go to ice hockey once. We watched football, we watched rugby league in Blackpool at that time. We decided to go to the ice hockey and had a great night, and I went for a few years until I went away to train as a teacher, came to live in Chester of all places for 3 years. I was off the Fylde coast, but when Jill and myself started going out together, I returned to ice hockey after a good many years without watching it, but it still had its real appeal, and we've both been involved ever since.
It is one of those things with hockey, you know, once you start, even if you've not been there for a while, you start getting a bit of a twitchy feeling. I don't know what it is about. So, I mean, you've been around the sport a long time, so naturally you've seen pretty much anything that can happen in the sport. I mean, there's umpteen tales you can probably tell from just being a spectator up to parent, be it and off ice official, and at many levels. So any nice little funny tales you can tell us to start things going?
There was one time when we went to Canada once on holiday. How old would Mark be then?
I think he was about 11.
And we went to the Maple Leaf Gardens, the old Maple Leaf Gardens it was then, and somebody on the staff there asked Mark if he'd go down and take part in a competition.
It was a game, the Erie Otters against St Michael's.
That's right, yes, yeah.
In the Ontario Hockey League.
And it was sponsored by a company called Pizza, and what Mark had to do, and this other little boy, a little girl it was, wasn't it? They stood pizza boxes up on the ice, and they had to shoot a puck and see how many they could knock down, and this little girl knocked 4 or 5 down, didn't she? And then Mark went up and bang bang bang, he knocked every single one down, and his prize for doing that was a pizza birthday party. But obviously we were going home in the next few days, so he ended up giving the prize to the little girl anyway.
Shocked the crowd that a guy from England could actually hold a hockey stick, let alone knock all the boxes down first time. So
that shows that's what we like to see. I mean, because of course your involvement, you sort of started your time up towards Blackpool, but I mean you've done a lot of time at other places as well.
Well, as I say, Mark started playing when he was about 4, and we were at Blackburn for about 20 years altogether. He went all through the junior ranks there at Blackburn, and then
through the
started his coaching, played
for the Hawks, and coached them for a while, bench coached them there, and
so we were there for about 20 years, and then the Cleveland's rink opened, of course, which we're about an hour away. Mark's about an hour and 10 minutes away from Widnes. It's about half an hour, 45 minutes to Blackburn, but Cleveland's was literally 5 minutes from our front door, so it was a no-go that we moved to Cleveland's when that opened. But sadly, we were there for 2 years with Fylde Flyers, but sadly it was such a small rink, it just wasn't suited, and being so far out of the coast, it was difficult to attract players. So that dwindled out, didn't it?
It was a great 2 years though. The crowds were very
brilliant,
good.
Yes.
And of course it was our first active involvement with Mick Corns. I mean, we'd known him many years through roller hockey and other things that we've been involved with Mark, but Mick brought a real style and bite to the way that the club ran. His publicity was very good machine. That he made sure he had banners up all over Cleveland's on the roads into the rink and that, and we got some really packed crowds in there. But we're talking about 300 or 400, but the rink was tiny, and but the atmosphere was really good. And it revived a lot of interest for the old Seagulls players. That was the really good thing. Lots of the guys as old as Harold, got people in the 60s, 70s, even 80s, a few of them were coming along and watching games, and it was like another focal point for them where they could come back, and it actually led to the Seagulls reforming as a rec team.
Yeah.
And they themselves went on and carried on there after we moved to Widnes, but they were still getting some quite decent crowds watching rec hockey, weren't they? But a lot of those guys were guys who had played for the Seagulls either in the British League, a few of them early on, you know, which was a league with quite a number of imports, and then later on when they dropped down into the non-import league in the English, but they'd all had a lot of experience, you know, playing for Blackpool, where they used to take on the top sides, particularly in challenge games. Durham Wasps, Dundee.
I was going to say Durham Wasps.
The real top flight teams used to come to the Ice Dome because it was a big thing to come and have a game in Blackpool and all that went with it, you know, after the game. It was a great attraction to come and play a game in Blackpool.
I remember my dad saying that when they went to Durham to play, there was actually a pole in the middle of the ice holding the roof up.
I've actually seen a photograph
and
of that.
And they had to skate round.
And it's like a 2x2, 3x3 balk of pole holding the roof up.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen photographs of it. Of course, I know Peter Jonker Johnson, and you know he knew of it, and you'd hear tales of that. And it's like,
and then the Smiths, who owned the rink, a family called the Smiths, they were actually undertakers, and the seats in the rink were made from coffin lids. And
the wood. Exactly. The plant was, I think. They had a generating plant using the flow of the river outside, and I did a tour of the rink. Mark went there for a hockey school. The last year it actually was open, the Durham rink, and quite a few of the lads who've played for us were there, weren't they? And we went for a tour around. It was just amazing. It was, you know, it was like a walk back in time. The rink had been built, I think, in the 30s, and most of it looked as though it was still in the 30s. But it was an amazing place with an absolutely terrific atmosphere in there.
Well, on the subject, I mean, you're saying about rinks with different characters. You must have seen a massive array just in Britain alone of rinks. Oh yeah, I'd love to go back there, but other ones you go, oh no, please, no, not there, please, not there. So come on, give us some examples.
Well, current climate, I think Bradford's got to be perhaps
tough,
the worst, if not one of the worst ones to go to.
It's quaint.
It's the only rink I know that's on the first floor. It's got to be. That's got to be a claim to fame.
There were others, Queen's Road at Sheffield. There were quite a few that were first floor, but the old Birmingham rink we played on there as Judy's. That was on the first floor. But yeah, I mean Grimsby. That was a very small ice pad and a pretty Spartan kind of place to go and get your head. I mean, we were spoilt at Blackburn, apart from the freezing cold. When Blackburn opened, it was a real state-of-the-art place, to capacity 3,500, and it was the first of the really big rinks to be built that weren't stadia. You know, like obviously when Sheffield built the Sheffield Arena, we were there on the first night. We happened to be shopping in Sheffield. We got some free tickets to go and see them play the Oxford City Stars. And we were just in Sheffield at Meadowhall, and they were giving out tickets, so we stayed on a bit longer. So we saw the first game they ever played, and to be able to go in there, we hadn't been to America by then, so to see a big arena was just stunning. But the facility at Blackburn was and still is a very good one.
Yeah, apart from the cold, I mean,
very cold.
And the hump in the middle of the ice.
We don't talk about the hump. We don't talk about the hump. But you know, I must admit, I mean, I look at Blackburn Rink and think, it is actually a really good ice arena.
Fantastic, and they've invested a lot of money in it in recent years. They kept updating it, and as you come in now, it looks a lot more impressive when you come in. And they've done a good job there.
So I actually quite like my trips up to Blackburn. To be honest, I think it's only an hour up the road from here, and I do enjoy going.
It was great there because we learnt a lot about starting teams, because we helped start the under-12s there. Mark had his first competitive game when he was 6. But there was no team then until he got to the 14s. I think he played an under-12 game. I'm pretty sure he scored in that. I think he scored in that game against Altrincham, if I remember right. But he was playing from 8 in the under-12s, and he's good, scoring quite a lot when he first started. And he'd had a head start a lot of kids because, like I say, he'd been skating from 4 or 5, but they soon caught up with him, didn't they?
I mean, it must be quite tough. I mean, we say about the youngsters taking on the sport and the costs involved. I mean, you know all too well, I mean, ways in which kids can get involved. Are there any tips you would give any of the wannabe young hockey players out there? they want to get involved in the sport?
I think it's a commitment. But you've got to get the balance right. I mean, we found at the time, Mark sort of fell back a little bit because we insisted that his school came first and his schoolwork. Some of the kids were down there 5-6 nights a week playing hockey. Well, we were too far away from Blackburn to be able to do that, but we always insisted on him doing his schoolwork in the week. So it was only in the week on training night that we actually went
and weekends, of course, which were mainly devoted to hockey. You know, if he wasn't playing, we were watching somewhere, and he's watched a lot of hockey, and he did right from being a child, and has always sat and watched it. He was happy to watch and from quite an early age analyse games.
I think that's
hockey.
A very important thing for youngsters nowadays, not just to go down and play and then forget it till the next training session. Watching hockey is very important. They learn so much from that. We see kids, don't we, at a match, not at Widnes, but we used to see it at Blackburn, and the parents would take them to a match and they'd just spend all night running about and playing on the machines in the cafe and so on. They weren't interested in sitting and watching the senior team play, but you can learn so much from that. It's very important.
He was very, very lucky that shortly after Blackburn opened, Blackburn went down the road of having basically a professional team, and they invested a huge amount of money in the early 1990s, and they had a fantastic trio of players where they really took the league by the scruff of the neck. I was going to say by storm then, but they turned out to be the sort of bête noire of the story. But they had Steve Chartrand, fantastic forward, probably the most skillful player that I have ever seen in British ice hockey was a man called Oleg Sinkov.
Oh,
he was a Ukrainian who was absolutely tremendous. They had John Haig.
Yeah, John Haig.
And they had giant defencemen like Durdle came, but that was a little bit later on. But they had a guy called Ryan Kumu, who had played over in the NHL, giant of a man, about the same size as our big D-men in Widnes now, 6'5" in his stocking feet, but at the time he was like unheard of, such a big man. But he was able to watch some very good players, and we were very lucky that when the Storm started, which was the year that Blackburn iced that very good side, they brought in as their coach a man called Kurt Kleinendorst, an American, and we had his son playing on our team at Blackburn. So Kurt used to come over and actually go on the ice. So we had the Manchester Storm coach coaching our under 12s, under 14s, etc. as they went through the age groups. Wonderful guy, great family man, and obviously he taught Mark and many others a great deal about the game, and he set standards which we hadn't seen in junior hockey. And that set
Mark off on his coaching road, really, didn't it?
He did, yeah. As soon as he was old enough, he wanted to get his first coaching licence, and he got coaching junior teams at Blackburn, and we've been involved with that. I know when he did his level 3, I had the job of filming sessions, because you had to actually submit films of your sessions, so that was Dad's job at the time, doing the film.
Well, we'll take a little break. I think, Jill, you got a little story about our first song.
Oh, Cats in Space.
Yes, and it was a Barney. I did a bit of those people who probably watched How I Met Your Mother know of Barney, and he does certain things, and the thing was challenge accepted. So, Jill,
well, I have a very wide musical taste. I was actually classical trained. I learnt to play the piano. My grandma was a piano teacher, so I learnt to play the piano, became a piano teacher myself. Training to be a teacher, I was obviously went to college, did my degree and everything, and I was taught in a high school for 38 years. I was head of music. I also taught a bit of French, but I was head of music. So I was classically trained, but then I've always had this hankering after rock music. I love rock music. And I went to see a band called Thunder back in March, and the support band was Cats in Space, and I was just absolutely taken by this band. And they're rather a bizarre band. I mean, they're all in their 50s, I hope they are. Anyway, apologies if any of them are listening and they're not all in the 50s. They call themselves a power pop rock band. They originate from down London way, and they only formed 20 months ago. But in that short time, as I say, they supported Thunder. They did their own tour just last month, and then were asked to go and support Deep Purple on their arena tour in November.
Wow.
So they've just progressed so well in the very short time they've been together, and I just think that they're absolutely wonderful. So
Go on, introduce it then.
so it's Cats in Space singing Broken Wing.
Time to look at some of the what's happenings around in the world of hockey. Of course, we've got our usual stuff on the website with our Puckers Pals, Own Alone shirts, highlights, podcast, and season tickets. Don't forget your Own Alone shirts are going fast. There's only about 8 left. Mainly road shirts and warm-up shirts. Road shirts £60, £75 for a game shirt. Check out widnesworld.co.uk for details.
And coming up this Sunday, we've got the RTL Widnes Wild against the Altrincham Aces, which is going to be probably one of the biggest games of the year for us. So people should come along to that if you can. But also, there's a special event on that day with Greg Roxton, the RTL Widnes Wild netminder, is having his shirt retired on Sunday, so we're asking people to come along at 5 o'clock. He's facing off at 5:30, but there's going to be a special event about 5:10, so please come along to that. The next Sunday we have a Widnes Wild women's game against the Nottingham Vipers. That again faces off at 5:30. The following week we have the Widnes Wild against the Sheffield Senators. This time we take one at home. That's Sunday the 22nd. The following week, Saturday the 28th, we're away to the Coventry Blaze. Now there aren't details for the coach yet, but the coach things will be on the Wild Ones website and the supporters page. And as usual, supporters club members £4, non-supporters £7. Any child with a paying adult will just pay £1. And finally, on Sunday the 29th, the RTL Widnes Wild take on the Telford Tigers again at home. There's one other thing to mention. On the 15th of October, they're having another quiz night. It follows on from the Widnes Wild ladies game, and it starts at 7:30 and it should be finished by 9:30. That's at the Brewers Fair in Widnes.
Wow. Extra little bit of a shout out now for all of our sponsors. So yes, many people are wondering who our sponsors are this year, and we have a nice little list. At the top of the shop, RTL, of course, Recycle Technology Limited, who are our title sponsor. We also have our sin bins, sponsored by the Sepsis Trust. Sprakes & Son Widnes are on our shirts and on, of course, links on the website. Top Print, there are off-ice team wear and on our shirts, so that's where you can find Top Print and look after our merchandise. If I get this one right, Umami, they're our website designers. And we have Hemsec Panel Technology. They're another one of our sponsors who are on our shirts and on rink boards at the rink. So a big thank you, of course, goes out to all of our sponsors for their support over the season and the coming games. So make yourselves known to us, and if you got any mentions as well, drop us a shout here at Time to Go Wild Radio. If you've got any birthdays, special events or the likes, drop them out to us here at radio@widnesworld.co.uk or via the Facebook page or the Twitter page. Because we want to make sure you're all included. We've had a few birthday announcements, so any special announcements, let us know.
We have one birthday announcement for Angie Fazzaroni, who has a birthday this week. I'm not sure which day is on, but she's mentioned it on Twitter that she's got a birthday. I'd like to thank, on behalf of the Widnes Wild and RTL, we invited someone who'd never seen a hockey match before, Lisa Brown and her family came along and they thoroughly enjoyed it and they want to come back.
And now it is time to sit back and relax, for it is now time for the wise words of one of our own players in Mike Marr's Monday Mantra.
And this weekend saw two games at the opposite end of the spectrum. The game on Saturday against the Senators was a game of character. We started slow and conceded 3 unanswered goals. Towards the back end of the second period, we pulled together and worked hard till the final whistle, resulting in an amazing 5-4 win. In my opinion, games like that are sometimes needed, having to show character and work hard as a team to get the win. I haven't got much to say about the game on Sunday, other than that everyone played well and everyone contributed to the 16-2 win. Multiple players got lots of points. Blackburn continued to work hard throughout the game and never gave up.
So tune in next week when we'll have more wise words of Mike Marr's Monday Mantra. Now, we've got those out of the way. It's time for a bit more Q&A. Now, we were talking music before. Now we've known about Jill's choice of music. Dick, I think it's your turn to get one in now.
Well, very broad taste, really. Seen a lot of music over a lot of years. I was at the Bath Rock Festival, one of the best lineups ever, I think, seen in this country when... that was back in 1970, and I was in the final part of my student days. But yeah, I still enjoy going to rock gigs with Jill, sometimes with Mark if I'm allowed to go along. Sometimes it's not just right for Dad, but yeah, I still quite enjoy going along to that. But
do you think he's going to show you? You're going to show him up or something?
Well, no, I don't know really.
Surfing.
No.
He shows us up.
Well,
he knows every word of every song. And we went to a gig it was the last Cats in Space gig, and he was singing along, and the lead singer said to him, "You're hired." So.
Yeah, my own sort of life in music has to a large extent been involved with a completely different form of music, in folk music. And for over 20 years I was the assistant director of what was an internationally important festival in Fleetwood, my hometown, File Folk Festival. I did a lot of work on that, on the publicity side, programming, and in fact booking artists. And over the years I've seen a lot of people come through from the pubs, go into the West End, people like Barbara Dixon. I remember she came, and I think we paid her 17 quid for a pub gig. Mike Harding, who we had on many times, a great folk comedian who filled the big theatres. Richard Digance was another one who had a television series, who I know I booked for under £20. And so I've had many happy years in that. I'm still involved with that to some extent, but yeah, I like absolutely everything, really. I've enjoyed musicals. We go along to those. I've even sung in them occasionally for Jill, and yeah, we have a good time with our music. And I love listening to Jill play when she does actually get on the piano. Our grandson, we've got a 7-year-old grandson. He's just started to play, and Jill's getting him going on the piano. So I hope there'll be a bit more relaxing music over the years still to come. Yeah.
So you got a choice for a song?
Yeah, this I love this song. My dad, who died many years ago, but he was a dock worker. Worked on Fleetwood docks when it was a thriving port on the River Wyre, and not just the dock itself, but the river frontage. And when I go to Newcastle, I always are reminded of Fleetwood in its heyday. This is The Big River by Jimmy Nail.
The sound of Jimmy Nail's Big River, chosen by Dick Gillingham. One half of our two guests tonight with his lovely wife Jill. who are two of the, I'll say, stalwarts of British hockey in many levels, and they've been part of the Widnes world since the beginning. So, tell us a bit how you saw the new beginning over in Widnes when you came.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the hockey at Cleveland's with Foul Flyers folded due to circumstances beyond anybody's control, and Widnes had just opened, and I think Matt Lloyd got in touch with Mick Corms and asked if he would like to be interested in setting up a team in Widnes. So initially it was most of what had been the Foul Flyers team that moved to Widnes. Mark was coaching them, and then it just developed from there.
A few others approached Mick, with a view to signing for the Wild. Mick had been keeping his eye, I think, on what was happening in Widnes. He'd been and had a look at the building and noticed a good sheet of ice, bigger one than we'd been used to playing on. And he just thought, well, if they would have a team in Widnes, he'd like to be involved with it. I've really admired what Mick has done, and I'm going to say that openly. I think he's a man who knows a great deal about the organisation and running, and he was a great asset to the establishment of Widnes Wild, and attracting what is now, I think it's fair to say, probably the biggest regular crowd in the division, and we've been very fortunate. We've got good support, and it's been maintained all the way through. A very good match night experience now, and people ought to think, it's worth going along and watching.
I mean, I saw the sort of development and evolution of a team that started off, and we were saying off air, and I'm not trying to put anyone down with this sort of comment, that in some ways back 4 and a bit years ago now, the D2 teams were often more like the lads that come to play hockey, and it wasn't seen as something as more than just, all the lads are just together having a good game of hockey. Whereas now that even every player is starting to just give it that little bit more, and the quality has improved. I mean, I was chatting with Danny Bracegirdle's dad, and he said, Dan was saying about the change in the team and the standard. I mean, would you say the standard's improved?
Oh yeah, I mean, we've got some exceptionally good players now. I mean, we've players, the contingent that came to join us from Sheffield have made an enormous difference to the playing style and what you're able to do on the ice. I mean, a lot of players have stayed loyal, and we've gradually built up a good squad of immense physical size and presence. I think it's fair to say. I was talking to Matt Lloyd last night, and he was saying that he thinks they would be bigger than even some squads in the Elite League in terms of physical size. So they certainly are impressive, and they can be a very formidable opponent for teams when they see the sheer physical size and presence of the Widnes team this year.
Apparently the atmosphere in the dressing room is absolutely fantastic. I mean, obviously they take it seriously, they concentrate on the game in hand. But I mean, Mark has been in hundreds of dressing rooms in his time, and he says that this is perhaps the best atmosphere he's ever come across, and everybody gets on so well, and it's led properly, and he's very impressed with us.
I mean, we come over 50 miles for home games, and sometimes 2 or 3 times that to get to an away game, but I really enjoy it, and I've enjoyed me hockey in Widnes as much as at any time I've been involved in hockey, which goes back, certainly now over 25 years. Active involvement, and I've tried to have a go. I've done most of the jobs. I've done match night announcing there. I've done. I don't think I've done the game sheet. You've had the game sheet all the time. I used to do it in Blackburn, but I've done the dressing room. I've done the kit collecting. I've done goal judging. I'm on the penalty bench at the moment, so I like involvement, and it's just nice to get involved with some super people at Widnes. It's a very, very good club. Good community club, and I would say to anybody out there listening, if you've not been to a game to see the Widnes Wild, go along. You will be very pleasantly surprised, and you will be welcomed with open arms. A good crowd of people who are welcoming, and you will be part of a good setup and a good community club.
I mean, you're saying about atmosphere. I mean, there's some characters both on and off the ice, be it in the sin bin you've worked with, and players you've seen. You can name drop a couple in now if you want.
Well, I mean, just the players we've had all the way through. I mean, the giant Latvian we've got at the moment, Alvis Veltzer. We were having a good chat with him before the Sheffield game, and he's a lovely guy. I mean, when he first came to England and we first got to know him, his English was very, very sparse. I think it's fair to say, but it's amazing how his English has developed so well. He's a lovely chap, and he's a family man now, 2 kids, and it's made a big difference to, I think, his perspective on hockey. But he's a superbly talented player, and we don't really have seen everything he's capable of yet. But he has played in the World Championships for Latvia, under 20s. Such a powerful fella with probably one of the strongest shots in England at the moment. It has been suggested he might have a shot at 100 miles an hour, but it's certainly a terrific powerful shot, and he's a great entertainer, and he can go from end to end with the puck, on the ice. Some people would say, to quote an old phrase, worth the admission money alone.
Talking about characters, though, you're talking about characters on the ice, off the ice. I've got to mention Shutty. He's helped out on the bench on occasions. He drives me mad, but I love him to bits. He is one of the biggest characters I have ever come across in off-ice ice hockey.
Oh, bless him!
Let's say, bless him. I could think of something else.
You miss him when he's not in the crowd, because there's no noise.
He has to give him a mention, or he would never forgive me.
Oh, so we'll have a very happy Andy Shutt there. But I mean, you say there's umpteen characters, and I mean. Talking about Elvis again, I mean, not often you see what I call the parting of the Red Sea manoeuvre, where you see a player go coast to coast and score, and he did that the other week, and it was like he comes from behind the goal, brings the puck straight down, gets to above the hash marks, hit the puck, and I don't even think the goaltender saw it leave his stick before it reached the back of the goal. It was that fast.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, you get so many different types of players with different kinds of characters.
I mean, our other overseas man, Pavel Valer's probably the best skater in the division.
Yeah.
And again, anybody who is interested in their child playing ice hockey, bring them down to see Pavel, because if you get your son to skate as well as he does, you will have a fine ice hockey player, because it's all about skating. It's about the ability to develop your skating and to be able to skate, manoeuvre, get into position. Without the skating ability, it's very difficult to reach the heights in hockey. But I love watching Pav. Great skater.
Oh, and well, we're almost out of time for another week. How time flies when we're all having fun,
doesn't it?
So we'd like to thank both of our guests for coming. Hope you've had a good time.
Thank you. Yes.
And we see we don't bite. We might bounce off the walls a bit, but we don't bite. All good fun in here on Time to Go Wild Radio. Games to come next week. I'll be back on tomorrow evening from 10 with more Box of Delights, with more musical mayhem. We'll be back next Tuesday night.
Yes.
With more from Time to Go Wild Radio, bringing you more of a roundup of all the news and views and interviews. But we've got one song to play us out. So, another quick story, and we can play out with our last song.
The Beatles, going way back to the 60s. The Beatles appeared several times in Blackpool. I saw them on one occasion at the Blackpool Opera House when I was about 8, I think. My dad got some free tickets, so we went, and they were on the bill with the Kinks and the Who. And you saw them?
I saw them the first time they ever played in Blackpool, July 1963. I was on the 6th row. I heard absolutely nothing for screaming girls, but of course that in itself was very exciting to a teenage boy, so I thoroughly enjoyed the concert, but probably for all the wrong reasons. But we've always been fond of the Beatles, and they played lots of times in Blackpool in those early years, and we've always followed the constituent members of the Beatles and been to see them all, haven't we? I think when we've been able to.
Oh, well, on that, it's time to go. We'll catch you all next week. Playing out with a bit of help. Here's the Beatles from us. Good night.